I actually feel that artists cannot be in competition. We nourish each other's words. Each one has his own way of expression, and we gain so much by the exchange we can have with each other.
I think art is a form of expression for an artist. It is so personal, it's inspiring, thought provoking. It's like a language in itself that can be interpreted in so many different ways and I believe can change lives. I am so in awe of all the artists that I have chatted with in this series, and I have personally learned and gained so much from each conversation. And I hope you do the same. So happy listening. Hi, everyone. Today I am in conversation with Rajae Qarrou. And Raja is talking to me from Barcelona. She's a very, very talented artist whom I happened to meet in Barcelona on my previous trip because she was showcasing her work at a museum for a festival. And I was so impressed with her talent. Just as a very quick introduction, Raja is actually a civil engineer by education, and then she chose to follow her passion and her dream and become a full-time artist. So thank you so much for joining me today, Raja.
Thank you so much, Payal. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today. And thank you for opening and offering this space of conversation to all creatives out there. Thank you.
So let me start off by asking you a bit about you. So your personal like backstory, and then maybe you could progress that into when did art actually happen and become a part of your life?
So as you mentioned, my name is Rajae Qarrou. I was born in Morocco. And I like to give a definition from the point of my personality, from the point of view of my relatives. So I am a dreamer to my husband. I am a philosopher to my brothers. I am a stubborn daughter, if you ask my mother. And I'm a hero to my father. I love art, I love science, and I love sophistication and simplicity. I grew up in Morocco, and I left Morocco when I was 20 years old to go follow my studies in Paris, as you mentioned, in civil engineering. My story is a story of a little girl that was passionate and curious about everything around her. I always had a lot of curiosity for things around me, and I always have the naive thinking that everything is possible. So very, very shortly, this is who I am. I think that throughout my life, there was one constant, which was like a lot of introspection, and in one topic in particular, which is happiness. As an introvert kid, I used to spend a lot of time with myself, and one of the things that I used to reflect about was how can we be happy? So throughout my life, I got to understand several bits and pieces of this. When I left Morocco at the age of 20, I realized that one of the components of happiness is being able to spend quality time with the people we love. I understood happiness from the things that were missing, actually. Then later on in life, I realized that another component of happiness was to be able to be fully yourself. Identity was another component of happiness to me. Then lately, a few years ago, when I suddenly lost my father with a heart attack, I realized that happiness is something that happens in the present, because we have no certainty about the future. The day I spoke to my father, a Tuesday, and I was supposed to meet him a Saturday, but that never happened. So I realized that it is something that happens. The only thing that we control is the present. So with all that in hand, I realized that I needed to be fully me, and I needed to be fully me today. I cannot postpone the projects that are dear to my heart to one day in the future, because there is no certainty about that. This is how I decided to leave my job in the corporate world and start my career as an artist, because and I guess whenever you ask an artist, this comes back often, that it's something that they had since they were kids, that they used to go to for self-expression, and then suddenly, whether they have the chance to follow the path since they are little, or suddenly later in life, they decide to go fully for it. And this is a little bit what happened to me. So after that sudden loss, I realized that I cannot keep on postponing that project anymore, and I fully embraced it to become who I was meant to be.
Yeah, no, that's so true. So yeah, so now let's talk a little bit about your art. So you sort of, stepped into the world of expression, and so, okay, maybe what was the first canvas that you painted, and why?
The first canvas that I painted, the first canvas actually that I painted was a Berber woman. So I am half Berber. It's the Berbers are the original tribes of North Africa, and I think that was an homage to my father and to my roots. It's simply something that came naturally as the first painting I've ever done. Yeah.
So that is probably the most valuable piece of art that you have.
Yes, and I still have it hanged in a wall, hidden, because imagine I am talking about maybe 13, 14 years when I was 13 or 14 years old. So I did not have the skills I have today. So I have it there. It's precious, but I hide it from the eyes of the public.
And you're never going to part with it. So yeah.
I will not. I don't think so.
Yeah, so what is the medium that you normally use, or do you experiment with different kinds of media?
Actually, I have a very spontaneous approach to art. So I never do like pre-studies before I start working. I never overthink about what colors I'm going to use. It's all a very spontaneous approach, because to me, I feel that when if I would do that, then I would, during the process of creation, I would have the fear of just not being able to reproduce what I had in mind. So, and I think that the biggest hindrance to creativity is the fear of messing up. So I consciously paint spontaneously, experiment with different technique, experiment with different mediums, and just let my energy out on the canvas while I am fully present in the moment.
So do you have like a point of inspiration that, for every piece of art? Because I've noticed on your website, every piece of art that you have has a sort of a caption to it, which is very specific. So I want you to talk a little about that.
Yeah. Well, actually, joke apart, I started painting because I had something dear to my heart to say, but I did not want to say it publicly and to give the details of my private story. So for me, painting was a way to code my story, to say it without mentioning the public details of it. And what makes me happy is when people come to my shows and they look at my art and they feel intensely what my art has to say without me having to talk and explain what is the private story I am telling about in my arts. And I think this is something I mentioned before in one interview, that when people come to me and ask me, what does your art, sometimes they tell me, well, I'm sorry, but I don't understand much about art. Can you explain to me? I feel something, but I want you. And I tell them that for me, art becomes interesting when it makes you feel things that words cannot always explain. So this is a little bit my coded story that I have in my artworks. But what I can tell you in general, that it has my personality in it. It's bold. You can see the bold colors that I use. You can see a bit the energy that I put on it. You can see how anti-conformists are the figures that I put in my paintings. It's a little bit the feminine figures that have daring position, brave position. So without going into the details, the private details, the big picture is a lot about courage, a lot about this authentic self, not ashamed of showing the bold colors.
And also, I think, I mean, at least that's what I believe, that art, when I walk into an art show and I look at a piece of art, it's my interpretation of that piece of art could be very different from what you as an artist is wanting to convey, or it could be aligned, you know. And I
Exactly.
think that sort of mystery is what is so fascinating about visual art. You know, do you think that art is like a vehicle of helping in social change, or is able to transform and bring about social change?
Very interesting question. I believe that art, like a historian, artists bear kind of a responsibility to showcase what is happening in their society, in their times. In that sense, it represents the changes happening in the society. I mean, when you look back at artists and artworks of other eras, it tells you clearly, it speaks about social events that were happening, or social concerns that were happening. So artists bear kind of the same responsibility as historians into representing the society we live in, whether be it representative art or how do I say that?
Contemporary art?
Contemporary?
No.
No.
Yeah, not really.
No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
not
yeah,
really.
yeah.
I mean, this is how I would put the link. It's very hard for me to reply to this question, and I guess you can tell. But this is the way I see art impacting. Of course, you also have activist artists that clearly send a clear message through the art, talking about whatever the Black Lives Matter movements, which was represented by the diaspora in the US and outside. Environmental activism in art. So this is also another way artists showcase and advocates for change through art. Okay. Feminism also, I think, through a lot of artists have a topic that they advocate for.
How does travel inspire artists, and you in particular,
Oh,
And
you
how
are touching
important
my
do
heart here.
how important do you think travel is?
Well, I have a this is a topic that I have with my husband, talking about discipline, because coming from his corporate and I am a creative. So he's always mesmerized by the fact that I don't go to paint every day, that I really need to get away from painting for a long period for me to come back and be able to flourish in creating new artworks. So for me, travel is that moment where I recharge batteries, my senses with newness, with experiences, with adventures. I love adventures. I love discovering new cultures, meeting new people. So it fills my brain with new experiences that when I come back to the art studio and all this gets
Instinctively.
Thank you so much. I told you I'm gonna do some transformed into an art piece.
It flows,
So,
yeah.
Exactly. So I'm that kind of artist. I like to joke and say that I don't have skills. I have moments. My art is an experience. It's not a skill. It's an emotion that comes out.
You know, what are you working on at the moment? And I know that you go to different art fairs and festivals. So two questions here. One is, why do you think it's important to do that? And two is, of course, what are you working on now? What are some of the interesting projects that you have lined up?
Yes, so 2022 for me is a busy year. I'm really happy because I have reached one of my how do you say, little girl dream. I'm going to be exhibiting of one of my artworks in Le Grand Palais Éphémère in Paris now in February. So this is for me a consecration. It's something that is really important and makes me very happy. At the same time, I have the art fair in the Art Week in Mexico City. So it's going to be for me a very... After tomorrow, I'm leaving to Mexico City. Then I will go spend there 2 weeks, and from there directly to Paris to go see the art fair in Paris. So things are happening. And the third biggest event for 2023 is in June, where I'm going to be exhibiting in Japan. So so yeah, it's going to be a very, very busy year, very busy year. Why is it important? It's important today I think there is a lot of talent. There is a lot of talent in art, but it's so important not to stay in your art studio, not just to stay in your art studio painting, because without communication, nobody knows about your talent. It's really important to put yourself out there, to talk. This kind of conversations that we are having together is also another way. An artist is a brand, and the brand needs to be built. And there are many ways to build a brand, but communication is an essential part in building the brand. And for me, this is a way to put myself out there, to meet the audience, to talk about my art, to build my brand little by little.
I really enjoyed talking to you, Raja. It's just been I know we met in November, and it's been a few months, but I think it's just such a fresh conversation to have. And
thank you so much.
And I wish you all the very best. And I can see that you're going places for sure with your art. And also as a human being. So
thank you so much, Payal. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Take care.
For more weekly conversations, do listen to Melting Pot on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts. Follow us on YouTube and on Instagram at Podcast Melting Pot. So until the next episode, this is Payal signing off.